Good day, everyone. My name is Ashleigh Ewald, and I am the creator and the host of my podcast, 100% Real with Ashleigh Ewald Talk Show. I've been doing this cool podcast since 2021 of the senior year of my high school. I created this podcast, of course, to inspire young listeners and bridge together the community so people can learn from those who've made it into different industries and who are sharing wisdom from their own perspectives. Today, for this month, we have an amazing, extraordinary guest. This one is just one of a kind and very relevant to the conversations and topics that are being discussed today, especially in the political arena. Please welcome Yemisi Egbewole.
Very nice. Very good. Hi, Ashley.
Hello, Yemisi. Thank you so much for your time. Do you want to introduce yourself? Not that I don't think you need one, but would you like
Oh,
to
God.
introduce yourself?
Um, Hi, all. Yemisi Egbewole. I am the former chief of staff to the Biden White House press office, current senior advisor to Dream for America, wonderful Gen Z-led org, doing democracy forward things. And I also run my own consulting firm called Podium Strategies. Um, and on top of all of that, I work as a political commentator going on Fox News, BBC, MSNBC, News Nation, but Fox News mostly every day, talking about what is happening in our politics. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's pretty dope. And I think that I know that a lot of listeners are coming from the ages of 18 to 24 and a little
hmm
bit higher for those who are just political junkies. But I really would encourage that Republicans and Democrats that are listening to this, that these conversations are for everyone and that everybody can learn something from MSC, regardless of where you stand in the political arena. So just to get started, first question, of course.
Okay.
What was it like serving as chief of staff and advisor in the Biden White House administration?
Well, I can just say that working in any kind of press office, I mean, for the folks in the Trump one right now, for me and the Biden, and I've, gotten to talk to people who did Obama, who did Bush, even Clinton. It is just nonstop, even as the modes and the different ways that we communicate, right? Like the way, right? Nobody really was using computers like that in the Clinton era. You weren't getting updates to your cell phone in the Clinton era. But even the nature of it, the nature of news, the nature of press happening in one of the most important places in the entire world, the White House. It is what I tell people nonstop. It is drinking from a fire hose. It is answering 100 emails throughout 2 hours and knowing that you got like 100 more coming down the pipeline. So I would say it is rapid.
That's a pretty direct, clear
Mhm.
response. It sounds very intimidating and very like very busy. So that's pretty good. Yeah. And so when you had your time in that White House, what's something about working in the White House press office that most people would be surprised to learn?
Well, most people would be surprised about the White House is that the majority of the people who work in the White House work in the building across from the White House, the Eisenhower Executive Office building. The press office is the only office, the only component in the entire White House structure where every single individual body works in the West Wing. So you're located in the West Wing outside of the press briefing room. And one thing that would surprise people is that that press briefing room is teeny, 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 tiny. You're sometimes fitting 50 to 75 bodies in that room, standing all against the walls. The AC doesn't run like it used to back in the first Bush days. Um,
Mhm.
and so it's just like really small. It's incredibly intimate. And reporters have great access to you. Reporters cannot access other people on staff except for the White House press office. They're allowed to go back behind the sliding doors of the White House press briefing room and up to what we call upper press, the offices that sit upstairs in the West Wing, and they're allowed to talk to you. So, small briefing room, entire staff in the West Wing, and great access from to reporters. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Even I don't even know that. So that's really cool. Wow. So all those people out there who want to work in the White House, listen, listen. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. And so just in general, how did you break into political communication and strategy?
Well, what people are often surprised by about me is that I came from the policy world. I started on the Hill in the Senate for Senator Mark Warner as a tech and telecom legislative staffer. So I worked on tech and telecommunications issues. Did that for about 3 years. And then I worked for Senator Amy Klobuchar, who was on Senate Commerce with oversight on those issues. So I was somebody who like wrote bills, who backbench senators when they went to hearings, who wrote the questions that they were going to ask and things like that. Worked on really the in the weeds policy, how do we get things through Congress kind of things. Moved to the White House and worked on the legislative affairs staff, which for the first 2 years of the Biden White House was responsible for helping push through a lot of the legislation that the president signed. It wasn't until Karine Jean-Pierre became press secretary and that kind of office was doing an overhaul because Jen Psaki was moving on to MSNBC. People usually leave the White House after 1 to 2 years. It's just kind of a brutal place to work for a long time. I was kind of approached about interviewing for the position to be the chief of staff to her office. And I told people, I was like, well, I don't work in communications. And they said, well, you present well, you're highly organized, and you work hard. So
Mhm.
those qualities that I had shown through my entire time working in Washington backed me up when it came time to move to another sphere. And look, comms is hard. I jumped into press and I drowned for like the first couple months, but you got to be bad at a job to be good at a job. And I
Mhm.
really doubled down and just made a determination that this was something I was really passionate about. It was something I wanted to be good at. So I fell into political communications and ended up just loving it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So it was more like wasn't even planned almost. It was like a no, like this is something that I discovered when you were doing your experiences in general.
Yeah, I said yes to an opportunity that I thought was outside of my skill set. And imagine if I had said, no, I don't really think I can do that. Crazy, crazy. I always say, look, say yes to the opportunity, say yes to the chance. I said yes to moving to Washington, D.C. To take a job entry level answering the phones as a staff assistant in a Senate office. And the job paid like very, very, very meager bones. And I
Yeah.
had just finished my master's degree. And I thought, well, that's not what you do when you get a master's degree. You go and you try to like get a job mid-level, something like that. But I was given the chance to be on the inside of like how Congress works. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take it. And I worked my way up. So I always say yes to an opportunity.
Thank you. That's really cool. I love your wisdom. That's good.
Mhm.
And just in general of like working in the White House, of course you probably have seen a lot behind closed doors and a lot of conversations and policies in the works. But I think a tricky question is like, what is a lesson you learned in the White House that you now apply to your own podium strategies?
Oh gosh. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy and you can't please everybody.
Mhm.
Trying to be a people pleaser is the death to any kind of real work and ingenuity. If you try to make everybody happy and make sure everybody is fed, you will never feed yourself and you'll never get the job done. There were so many times that I would come across reporters or stories where we would say, okay, they're going to write this. We don't like what they're going to say, but um, there's really nothing we can do about it. And so maybe we take a piece of what they're going to say and we kind of try to find maybe the upside, the bright side to it, things like that. I just like when I was working with reporters, I always found that like one reporter was going to write a story one way, another was going to write a story this way. All you can control is right here with you in the middle. And so that's what I try to take with podium strategies all the time of like, I go on Fox and I say something, somebody disagrees. I go on BBC, I say something, somebody disagrees. All I can do is stay true to myself and my values and what I believe. So I'm led and guided by that a lot of times.
That's awesome. So it's like being authentic and being true to yourself.
100%, 100%. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Because I think a lot of times, especially like learning in policy and stuff, is that there's always that whole like politicians, are they going to keep voting with their party base? Or are they going to actually break away from that and be able to speak up and be like, I actually don't agree with this. And I really want to try something different? Because I see that a lot, especially in Congress and politics, is that people are like, oh, like, yes, I am the part of this political party and I want to follow my political party, but there are certain things I just can't get behind. You know, it's like, do you compromise your authenticity or do you follow your party, even though you know that certain things are not what you can agree with?
Mhm. Well, I always tell people my favorite bills in Congress that got passed were bills where nobody was happy. Everybody
Mm,
was upset because it meant that there was actual compromise. It meant that you had to give up something in order to gain something. And we're in that moment right now with the government shutdown, right? We are at an impasse because Democrats disagree with what Republicans want to do to the ACA to healthcare. And so we are willing at this point to shut the government down if Republicans don't come to the table. Republicans are not willing to give and budge and lose something. And so they are therefore going to lose their government. The government is going to shut down with Republicans in charge of the Senate, of the House, and the White House. So my favorite thing is when something passes and there's grumbling on both sides. Because one person being happy about a bill passing, one person, like one side being 100% happy, means that there was no push or pull, there was no give or take, and that's not politics, right?
that's a badass. That is a really good,
No,
like,
you can cuss.
that's
It's your
good.
podcast. You cuss.
Thank you. Because I've never cussed before, but it's like, no, that's appropriate, like, language. Like, no, that is a very good take. Like, that's
Hmm.
not politics. That's true. I love that. I wish that more politicians would understand that, you know?
Yeah, we're losing that. Yeah.
Yep. hmm
Mhm.
And so just going back to your podium strategy. So I do my research on people that I think that would be great to be on here and have people listen to. And I saw that you launched your podium strategies. Can
Hmm.
you talk more about what that
Hmm.
is and what
Hmm.
motivated you to do that?
Yeah, so I came out of the Biden White House and I really just wanted to take a break.
Mhm.
I'd worked 60 to 70 hours a week for 4 years. So when Trump became president and he was like signing executive orders, doing different things like that, I was on an island. I pieced out. I said, y'all got it. Y'all voted for it. Y'all got it. Handle it. Deal with it. And then came back and I was renewed, refreshed, rejuvenated. And I said, what do I want to do? I didn't want to work at I didn't want to go back into what I would consider a machine, work at a big company or anything like that. The White House had so much bureaucracy and like approvals and like be here at this time, stay here until this time. And I was like, I want control over my own life.
Mhm.
And everybody came back to me and said, with your relationships, with the positions that you've had in Washington, almost a decade living here, you could very well start a consulting firm and you can work with clients, helping them kind of understand Washington. And I was like, I don't know. Like those are, I mean, like I know people who do it, but they're all men, and they're all white men. And well, who do I know? What do I know? Turns out I know a lot of people. It turns out that I know a lot.
Mhm.
So I started consulting with some folks who I had met through my time at the White House who had like maybe they'd flown in for a meeting or something like that, and they now wanted to get connected to the Trump administration or to somebody on the Hill. And it turned out I knew people there. And so started like working with folks on different issues and helping people. People do not understand Washington. If people care about certain things and they go, how do I get this in front of somebody? How do I talk to somebody about this? Well, there is a committee that has oversight on that and has hearings. It has subcommittees that has hearings on that. There is a committee that there are caucuses that work on labor, workforce, wellness. There are so many things that you can do to get actively involved in Congress if you have a business and you're worried about how tariffs will affect it, how restrictions with shipping things overseas will have an effect. There are so many things that you can talk about in Washington. Right. There are like athletes I've worked on who are like, I care about this, I care about nutrition. I go, okay, well, I know a member who has a bill that would pair nicely with like what you care about. So why don't you come to the Hill and have a meeting? So yeah, a lot of those things that you see where you're like, how did that person end up at the Hill? I'm a part of that. I'm a part of that process of like, what do you care about? How can we get that in front of folks? And so that's a lot of the work that I do.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. So you're like acting like the bridge of helping other people who are interested and making sure
Mhm.
you direct resources on how they can make sure they get that into reality.
100%. And then I also do a lot of travel and I speak on panels and talk a lot to young folks, to young women about how to get more civically engaged and politically active. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents have really no concept of the US government. And they also, they're also like, we got our citizenship. We're okay. Like whatever the government does, the government does. So yeah, so I really had to jump like head
Mhm.
first in and figure out this whole world myself. And so
Yeah.
I've really, really, really pride myself on being able to help other folks who care about things and are passionate, like have issues advocacy things, helping them kind of come forward to the table.
Wow, that is so cool. That's amazing. And I love how vulnerable you are to share your story like that. That's
Mm-hmm,
great. So when it does come to messaging, I realize that also as somebody who was very involved in the Democratic Party and
mm-hmm.
the campaign, like messaging is the number one thing that a lot of people will talk about after the
Whew.
2024 election. But how does messaging change when you're talking to the press versus talking to everyday voters?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're talking to the press, I say, if this thing is on the record, you just need one good statement, one good way to kind of push your message because we ingest things bite sized, right?
Mhm,
There's a big thing with the Democratic Party that we always joke about is that we love a fact sheet. Dems love to put everything on a fact sheet and say, here are all the ways that we're helping, and there's 26% increase in this, and we've decreased this, and yada yada yada. And one big thing I'll talk about is one thing I talked about Fox a lot is militarization of the police, deployment of National Guard in DC, and crime. And one big thing that I talked to DC City Council members on, I talked about this with people who worked in public advocacy of like,
mhm,
yeah, crime is an issue in cities. Crime is an issue in cities. Why? Because we have a high population in cities,
mhm,
right? And crime happens where people exist. So like there is more crime in a Chicago than a rural Wisconsin. Duh. Um, Telling people that crime is not an issue or that we've reduced crime by 34%. There are all these numbers we were throwing out, and I was like, this doesn't work because the other side, Trump, is showing images of stores being looted, of people being stabbed, of carjackings, right? Sometimes less words are what you need because the messaging is the image, the messaging is
mhm,
the picture. And so
mhm,
the better counter message to that isn't that, well, we've reduced by 34%, well, we've deployed this many officers. Sometimes it's like, well, yes, there's crime.
mm,
Sometimes it is like it is actually admitting what my issue with the Democratic Party is like we won't admit when he's on the money with something. Trump says there's no crime. What do we say? Well, no. Trump says there is crime. We say there's no crime. It doesn't exist. Well, that's not true. That's not true
mm,
because because of it's a city. Of course, there's crime. There is crime. We
mhm,
have worked on reduction, and we can definitely see more areas that we need to improve on. That's not hard. But we have worked ourselves as a party so much into orange man, bad man that we shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to being responsive to the things that he says.
mm,
He says there's crime. We say there's no crime. He says DC has a fentanyl problem. We say we don't see it, right? He says here are images of people sleeping outside. We say, here are images of the National Mall. Well, of course, the National Mall is clean. There's park police. There's federal police already that take care of it. So I think when it comes to messaging to
mhm,
everyday people, you send the fact sheet and the stats to the reporters. You send messages of images and very clean visual things to the everyday voters because that's what they see. That's what they ingest. They don't care about a 34% reduction when the other side is showing someone being stabbed on a bus. Do you see which one stays with you?
right. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that for like the next election too, Democrats should definitely harness that. And I think that's the reason why you're so important to be speaking on Fox and Friends is because people need to hear your insight. People
Mm-hmm.
need to hear that the ones that worked in the Biden administration are having an autopsy on the 2024 election and are having
Mm-hmm.
their own skills and facts. And I really hope that the Democratic Party listens to you, every word you say, because you say very good things that are common sense and that actually make sense about how we can improve. How can people improve? How can candidates learn from mistakes and errors
Mm-hmm.
that happen and be able to resonate with voters more?
Yeah. I think it comes down to um we want so much to be change makers in the Democratic Party and we care so much for like the little guy, for the people who are underrepresented. But what I always tell people is
Mhm.
you do not get to care about the little guy and have an effect in their life if you don't win. If you are not elected, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It doesn't fucking matter. That's what I tell
right.
people all the time when they sit down, they come to DC, they go, I care about this, and I go, okay, well, where's the middle ground that we can find here so that we get like other folks on board and we get bipartisan consensus? Then people tell me, I don't care about bipartisanship. Well, then it's not going to pass. Your
Mm,
bill doesn't pass unless a Democrat agrees with a Republican to pass it, right?
yes.
Or Republican agrees. Nothing passes out of committee unless there's like a consensus. Nothing passes on the floor unless there's a consensus. Yes, Republicans have a majority, but certain things like voting on the budget, voting on a continuing resolution, a CR, requires at least 7 Democrats. They're not going to get it. The government's going to shut down. Do you see where we have to find areas of bipartisanship? So yeah, I always tell people, I know you want to make a difference, but if you're not able to find a way to get the other side to care about this, the side that's empowered, the side that's going to vote it and pass it through, then there's no point. And then all you
Mm.
have is an idea and a feeling. And feelings don't feed people. Feelings don't house people. Feelings don't affect the economy. Feelings are just feelings.
I'm gonna quote that. That's awesome. No, I'll use that for our video
Yeah.
clip and be like, you have to watch this. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's like a
Okay.
bad ASS right there, right? That is amazing. I'm telling you, you're
Yeah.
really good at what you do. And I think that also brings a lot of legitimacy to what you say. I think
Mm-hmm.
that politics has so many like opinions. And I'm like, where are the experts at? Where are the people that have actually experienced and had background in the stuff they're doing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I want because some people are getting government roles and like jobs when they haven't even had prosecuting experience back in the past or
Mm-hmm.
haven't even had any experience that you need in order to successfully fill that role that you're appointed to, you know?
Yeah.
Yes. But on the brighter side, yeah, so what does success look like for you beyond the political arena?
Yeah. I think we work in DC, we work hard. People in DC work hard all the time, and it can be kind of lonely. And in my age, I'm 33 now.
No way.
Seasoned millennial.
No,
So
you're
go
still
you, Gen
young, but
Z.
you look like you're 22. You look like my age. I
um,
literally was like, yep,
well,
this girl, Gen Z.
no, but a lot of that is I find the joy in my life. I have an amazing community, amazing group of friends. I have interests and things that I care about outside of politics. I almost mourn for the younger generation coming up, the fact that they get thrust into everything so quick and they are like hyper aware. Because I think it creates a tunnel vision and they don't ever come up for air. And so sometimes, like I talk to a lot of young folks, they'll send me things. They'll go, "Oh my God, look at this! Oh my God, look at this!" And I go, you can only choose 3 things to care about today, but no more than that.
Ooh.
Choose. I choose something to be outraged about, no more than that. I worked in the Senate during Trump's first administration. Every day was like just feelings and riling up and like you'd go into work at the Capitol, people protesting outside, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I remember during the Kavanaugh's hearing when he was nominated and how like intense and emotionally charged that was, and that whole experience left me so drained. And he eventually, right now, he sits on the Supreme Court, and I remember feeling like, okay, so like, does what I feel not matter? And I think it's more about be intentional with what you feel and what you feel about. If you are outraged at everything, then you are just an outraged person 24/7. You cannot build a life like that. You cannot be a good neighbor, a good daughter, a good friend, eventually like a good partner to someone if everything you feel in life is outrage. So I had to scale back and I
Yeah.
had to say, today I am just going to choose joy. I'm gonna read something. I'm gonna say this is awful. I'm gonna talk about it on the news. I'm gonna get off the news and I'm going to live my life. I'm going to exist. Yeah. Uh, and that is to me the biggest accomplishment outside of this. I am able to maintain and not burn out in this culture, in this city. I live just like a 15-minute walk from the White House. I'm able to exist in this space because I can turn it off. I know when to turn it off. And I think it's really, really important if you want to be long term and active in this space that you know when to disengage. You cannot remain engaged on everything. You cannot, if a car remains on, it runs out of gas. It just does. If a light bulb is on, it turns off eventually. You have to know when to turn off because you have to pour into everybody else in your life.
Wow. I'm so speechless. That was beautifully said. It's like being trying to be find that balance and setting boundaries for yourself. You obviously have
Hmm.
really good boundaries. Like, no, no, no. I love what you said. Like you get there and you're talking about politics, go on TV, you come home, you're like, nope, disengage. I'm just gonna hang out with my friends. I love
Bravo,
that.
baby. Real Housewives. Somebody will text me something and I'll go, all right, but I'm watching Real Housewives right now. Nothing I can, I have no opinion on this at this point. Let me watch my TV show. Like, you just got to turn it off.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's amazing. And your mental health, do you feel like that it's helped you a lot? Like,
Yes, yes, 100%. I am a Black woman living in America. If I wanted to be upset every second of every day, I could be. Could be. I could find something to be upset about. But that is not beneficial for the work I want to do long term, for the impact that I want to make. So yeah, I put on my Oprah hat and I go, choose joy.
I love that. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. And just lastly, like, oh man, you've given amazing takes and great advice to young people. But like, what is the last thing you want to say? The last advice you would give to any young people? Because there's a lot of them out there
Yeah.
about political communication and making a
Hmm.
career out of it.
I would say know when to pour on the honey and know when to pour on the fire.
Ooh.
Especially as a woman, I have found that if you are too nice, folks will walk over you. Um, and they will also think you are a bitch if you stand up for yourself. You're not going to please everybody. You're not going to win. So know when to pour on the honey, know when to put on the fire. That is the way to survive in political communications. Okay.
Mhm.
This is not an environment for sunshine, daisies, and roses. Politics is hard.
Mhm.
Politics is real. Politics affects people's everyday lives, and they get
Right.
emotional about that. They get angry about that. I mean, when I was working in the White House that last year, we walked between protests, between people calling us like, well, every kind of name in the book. Same when I worked in the Senate. You have to have a spine of steel to work in political communications, especially at a time when people have access to you all the time. Um, you just have to know when to be nice and then when to really lay it down. Because let me tell you, I can giggle and I can tee hee, but I also can cut the shit real quick.
I love it. Yes.
Ain't no
You're a
pushovers over
badass. You
here.
are. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Yemisi, for your
Mm-hmm.
time and just being able to like speak with me. And like I know I'm very confident you're gonna reach people's hearts that you already did. You did it with me. And I
I'm
really
confident
hope,
you're gonna reach. You're gonna
thank
have
you.
such an impact. What do you mean? Start a podcast in high school? That's crazy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, but I really appreciate your time and I really hope that people learn from it. They will, they will. Because if you
Yeah,
can get one person to get off the sofa and want to go and do something and pursue that whole political career or whatever they want, yeah, we did our jobs. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Agreed.
yes.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. And I hope everyone please follow Yemisi Egbewole on all her social media. You literally can Google her and you'll find all her social media. It's amazing. And don't forget to follow my social media as well, Ashleigh Ewald Official and Gen Z Not Speaks on Instagram. And you could also get this on YouTube as well, Ashleigh Ewald Podcast. Thank you, everyone.